This is the Dodcast. I'm your host, Nathaniel Dodson. In today's podcast, I sat down in the kitchen with Max Grudzinski, a Philly photographer who's become a friend of mine over the past few years. Max and I bumped into each other through a co-working space here in Philadelphia, where I was a member, and we've just kind of stuck together ever since. I even hired him to photograph my very own wedding just a few years ago. Max and I talk about getting into photography and how he got his start in wedding and other photography, and how it all goes down on the day of a wedding. The film company he works with and all of their red cameras, his passion for skiing, the dangers of that sport, and the bizarre story of when he had his fingers and toes cut off. We talk about all that and a bit more in this, the 7th episode of the Dodcast. Welcome to the Dodcast, everybody. It's my podcast where I talk about things that I'm interested in with people who are, usually much cooler than myself. And today I got my buddy, Max Grudzinski. With a long last name like that, how can you forget it? I guess the biggest ringing endorsement I can give you is you're the guy who I had photograph my wedding. And I mean, part of it was because the guy who I really wanted called out at the last minute. But no, but you did a great job on it. I'm still working on retouching the images. I think we're 3 years on from it. How you doing, man? Thanks for being here. I appreciate you being here.
It's pretty much my biggest honor of the week to be here, and I won't take any slights at you, but I really appreciate being here and being asked to be on it.
Very cool, man. So you grew up in the Philly area?
My whole life.
Yeah, you've done a lot of different photography stuff. You work with, is it Maestro Filmworks? Is that how you pronounce the name?
Yes, correct.
And do they do still photography over there, or is it all?
But all moving stuff. Yes, I do their day-to-day stuff and have been for years, but it's a nice kind of mix where I have the support staff and, people to bounce ideas off of, but then can go out and, do my own stuff on a Wednesday, Thursday type deal, and then go back in the shelter of, being around people and having an office setting.
You've done a lot of freelance photography. I mean, a reasonable amount. I'm not saying you're like beating down the world with the amount of freelance work you've done, but you've done a reasonable amount. Is it nice kind of having that office environment, those people around, like you said, to bounce ideas off of? Do you like that more than going at it alone, or? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's always like a grass is greener thing in terms, and I'm sure you've had these experiences where when you're working on contract for someone for a couple months, or, if you're going to the same place every day, you kind of get that itch. So I think what I found is just a really nice balance of doing, being out there on my own, doing the freelance, fighting it alone. And, I know you know what that means, but just in terms of like shooting, editing, all of it, do the customer service on the back end.
And find new clients.
Exactly, right. Selling it. I don't want to say selling it, but selling it, shooting it, editing it. It's a lot. So it's really nice to kind of have both. Yeah. So you don't have that grass is always greener feeling. And, it's a great place there. And we've just built the best team in terms of who's there on a daily basis. And then when we bump out to these bigger groups and these bigger shoots, just everyone that always comes on set and everything has just always been the highest caliber people. So it's been a great way to network and just surround myself with like amazing people. And the owner, Chris, is just, almost family at this point. He's just been a great mentor and influence in my life. So
that's super cool. Yeah, I've been over there. It's a nice, I want to say a nice little setup, but I almost feel like that's a little derogatory. It's just a nice setup. It's a nice place they got going on, and you can tell a lot of time and effort and everything went into it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like you said, it does the job for what we need to do. We were looking at bigger spaces, but really just kind of made it a home for the time being. And, even like the past couple of weeks, we've just been sprucing up the conference room a little bit, and it's kind of nice to just refine and make it homier by the week or the month at this point.
For sure. When you were freelancing, what kind of stuff were you shooting? Like, what were you primarily going out and shooting?
I mean, right now, in the past, I would say 2 years, there's been a lot of really exciting clients. Some I've established a relationship with and keep working with. Unfortunately, some of them, due to personnel changes or just just kind of falling off, have fallen. But it's I've been doing just in the past year a lot more food recently. If I can name drop.
Yeah, whatever.
I've been doing some work with Star Restaurants, which has been really rewarding. They just launched their sites in the past couple of weeks, and it's it's pretty incredible to see your stuff at that level. If you look at the bigger restaurant groups in Philly, they're definitely at the top of the game. So just to see your images on their site, sure you have these moments where you're like, am I doing anything at all anymore? Is anyone even looking? Does anyone even care? And then you kind of see yourself in these lights and show up in these places. And it's like, okay, you know, at least I got here.
Right.
You know, I did some sports stuff for the Sixers. That was really rewarding.
Lots of tall people over there.
Lots of tall people. No apple boxes for once, you know, like I had for, you know,
you needed the apple box.
So yeah, that was really interesting. I got, some really cool access to the stadiums, to the players, and you know, it was an exciting year there. And unfortunately, they were one of the personnel changes where it just kind of they brought in new people.
Isn't that funny? Because I've had clients like that as well, where you have like your main contact at the company, and then that person moves on somewhere else, and the whole company drops from your radar. And I've often like the work you were doing was obviously good enough because, like you said, if you worked for them for a year, I mean, you were doing something right. Is it? And because there's one company in particular that comes to mind that I worked with, where the guy, my main contact at the company left. He went to another company, and I've never done another job for the company since then. And there's a part of me that's like, should I be reaching out and saying like, hey guys, hey, I'm still over here, jumping up and down, waving my arms, or is it just the company maybe isn't quite as organized as I thought, and that guy took the contacts with him, and they're like, who was that photographer in Philly that we had going and doing X, Y, and Z for us?
I mean, it's tough because I always have that thing too, where it's like, do you knock down the door? And I did at one point. You know, I've done this little trick for anyone. If you know if you know their naming conventions in their emails, and you go to LinkedIn and find who's who on the organization, and you use that naming convention, and you can pretty much email anyone in that company.
Isn't there a Gmail third-party app that can do that now or something? I forget what it's called.
But yeah, I do it the old school way.
Yeah,
so yeah,
more satisfying.
I emailed people above those people and just said, hey, I'm still here. You know, I thought we did good work together, but sometimes you don't hear back. Sometimes you do kind of ring that person's memory or just remind them that, hey, you are there, and they'll get back in touch with you. But yeah, I mean, it's always tough to kind of let things like that go, but you know, it's just you just try to fill that, you know, that void or that gap with more work. In my mind, you know, it's okay, that one's gone, like on to the next one. So it's just trying to find that next client out there.
Right. How'd you get into photography?
So I mean, it was interesting. I've been asked this question a lot in my life, obviously, and I was always a recorder, if that makes sense. Like I remember getting my first camera for Christmas, like this little point and shoot Canon, and literally went around my house and photographed every Christmas decoration. You know, my mom was just like an amazing decorator. So I got the tree and got some of my dad playing piano and just like was always documenting, you know, and even
just film.
Yeah, I would, and not even in video, just in stills, you know, and I've always been.
No, I'm saying, were you shooting film or was it digital?
No, this was digital. This is my first digital camera. Gotcha. But yeah, so I have. And even now, like I have every old hard drive I have all my old cell phone SD cards. Like I'm talking old, like the first flip camera phones. I have all those micro SDs.
So you're going to be the guy at 65 that's like Ancestry.com. You ain't got nothing on me.
Exactly. But like it's always kind of been a thing for me. And so I think it probably started there. And then I was really fortunate in college to have two professors that really like took me under the proverbial wing. And we were shooting all film back then. So I learned on film. Large format was a big step for me. So shooting like 4x5, 8x10 negatives, you know,
literally and figuratively.
Right. Yeah. It just was, well, just, you know, like starting to work at, you know, archival prints that were, you know, a couple feet big. Yeah. And then we actually, a professor of mine was enlarging, big time, like 8x10 negatives. And he was in his darkroom in these big baths and stuff. And just having that tactile touch and, you know, shooting these cameras where, you know, the curtain over your head, the big bellows, and being able to shoot for miles in focus, and just really kind of changed the way I viewed it. And, you know, coming out of college, I actually built furniture for a couple years and kind of thought that was going to be the way. And it's a little rough on the body. You know, I'm sure you've done manual labor. You know how it feels at the end of the day.
I try to forget about those days.
But, you know, it was a little beating me up a little too much. And I kind of looked at the art space in terms of what I knew how to do. And, you know, I don't want to knock anyone's profession, but for what I could and couldn't do, you know, there wasn't much money in a lot of the mediums out there. And I saw photography as the way we communicate. You know, if it's advertising, social media, a magazine, you know, look at social media, it's all photos, you know, it's the way we communicate as people. And I think there's always a demand for it, you know? So I think I just kind of looked at it from a practical standpoint at one point and really just kind of ran with it, sort of in that hyper-focus way, you know, like sold off a lot of my woodworking stuff, sold off some instruments, and really just kind of went into the camera gear and just haven't really looked back, actually.
So you right out of college, you were just right into photography?
I mean, I was shooting seasonally, for a couple like kind of cookie cutter photography places, you know, just doing commencement photography and that school photography stuff, and
very titillating stuff.
Exactly. Very exciting work. But, doing some friends' engagements that had just gotten engaged, and that kind of led into the weddings and stuff. So just kind of following the path that where there were no barriers to entry, where you didn't need an agency or a massive portfolio of work. You could, and I still do, run everything I do out of a backpack. I can go out and shoot with a backpack and a light stand, and that's how I've always kind of been.
It's my favorite way to go out and shoot. I don't want to have to bring a truckload of gear. I was doing a shoot one time for this DJ down in Miami. I wasn't doing the shoot in Miami. He flew up to the Philly area, and we were out by the art museum. And I had a reasonable amount of gear, I thought. I mean, like 6 or 7 lights, and we were lighting the scene up. It was a big environmental thing we were doing, environmental portrait. And he's looking around, he's like, you really travel light, don't you? And I'm like, bro, this is me maxing out the joint here. You know what I mean? And I'm not necessarily comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I just hate carrying all this stuff around. You got to set it all up. I want to take pictures. I want to interact with people. I want to make you laugh. I want to make you smile. I want to hear the stories that come out of your mouth and stuff like that. And, the pictures just kind of happen in between that stuff. And it was, one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess I travel light. I want to travel. I don't want to travel heavy as a photographer. If this is traveling light, I don't want to travel any other way.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been one of those people, and unfortunately, I've been robbed, once now, where I kind of just reset in terms of gear.
That was that crazy robbery you told me. Can you share that story with everybody if you don't mind? Because that's a crazy robbery story.
It's unfortunately happened once at my place and then once at a business. But yeah, I literally was out at a concert and got a call from, basically the block captain or the person that looked over the block, and someone had basically kicked down my back door and kind of literally cleaned us out. Like, it looked like we had moved out of the house.
All your furniture,
everything, everything was gone. My change jar, the big jar change you have to like travel with, or your fund money, was gone. And it was
crazy.
It was an eye-opening experience in terms of like how to properly insure things, how to properly secure your home. But it's one of those you live, you learn type things. But I think since that point and having that reset, like being very conscious of the gear I acquired, not taking things I don't need, and just kind of like not being impulsive about buying stuff, but kind of waiting for the right deal, or the right time.
Just something else somebody can steal from you.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's like almost like, when you think about those like 8 light setups and those, massive things, I actually find that distracting a lot of times,
I mean, every once in a while I can see where that's legitimately useful. You need to set up a high key set, and it's a big studio environment, and we need to bang out these shots for this magazine. All right. But if I'm out on location, the last thing I want to do is have to plug in. I mean, I've got 7 lights out there. I might be using 2 of them. The other 5 are just different wattages, different power levels. You just give me some different options. I'm not setting up 7 lights on location. What that is 7 sticks going up into the wind that at any moment could be blown over.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I always look at that, and I'm sure you know who he is, but the Platon model, where it's, connection to subject. It's one camera, one light every time, and it's just the same camera, the same light, shoot through umbrella, and it's his like you just said, it's a connection to subject where the portrait happens. So rather than worrying about, if your what your backlight's set to, what everything's set to, just really focusing in on, and I've been trying to do that a lot lately. I feel like a lot of times the more you learn, the more you understand about photography, the more things you're thinking about as you're shooting, rather than just the frame and the person in it or the subject matter in it, kind of stripping away and just staying in your viewfinder almost, rather than all the technical stuff that's out there.
Yeah, photographers, they love the technical stuff. I should say I do geek out about some of the technical stuff, but it's also, I'll shoot with a 10 megapixel camera if I have to, and it lights light, and the lens you slap on. The other photographers doing great work with lenses that are decades old, and it's, you're looking through optics and you're capturing the photo. Like, do it. And right? I mean, if somebody takes a picture of somebody who you love dearly, and it's with an iPhone, and it's moments or days before they die, are you like, I would have liked the photo if it had been a D850,
right? Exactly.
But because it was a digital Rebel XTI from 2000 and whenever, I'll pass. Right.
No, and I envy the people that have that just raw, like, natural talent. I have a couple friends out there that kind of came from just the interest side, and now take photos that are such a high caliber, and maybe they don't understand all the rules that a lot of people do or you do, but it doesn't matter. And I almost envy that that they can just go out there and just have that raw eye and that compositional skill.
I think what's crazy is a lot of those people feel pretty self-conscious, like, I don't remember what f-stop I shot that photo at. And and maybe it's just I'm at the point now. I mean, it's not like I've shot forever. I've been taking pictures for 7 years. That's not very long. But I'm now even to the point where it's just like, so what? It's an amazing picture. Like, you can feel what that picture was like to shoot. And those are those photos where it's jumping off the paper at me or to the screen in a lot of cases these days.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite photo I've probably taken in the past couple of weeks was on an iPhone. After that big sunset storm last weekend. I was on the Schuylkill Riverbanks and had my iPhone handy and grabbed a shot, and it's literally been my favorite photo I've probably taken in the past 2 weeks, and it was on an iPhone. So, a lot of times you look at all the silly stuff we buy and how many hours you spend looking on these gear forums and reading these ratings, and it's
always for the comment section for me. Just go right down to the comment section, and there's somebody screaming about something.
Yeah, the joystick isn't tactile enough, or the button responses.
DxO Mark gave this a 92.5, not a 93. Get your facts straight, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy what people will dice and fight about, but. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really what you bring home and the camera you have on you. So it's definitely something I think comes in like waves or just goes full circle at points. You spend all this time acquiring gear and getting everything set, and then you either get bored with it or, my favorite camera's, sitting right over there, and it's a little tiny Fuji that I absolutely love. So. Do you
still shoot film? I know that's a mirrorless, right?
Yeah. I mean, I do from time to time. It's not practical in a professional sense at any means, but it is. Like I said earlier, it's something I learned on, and you can't recreate it, But I do have those moments where I'll shoot a roll of film, I'll, get it developed, be all excited, and then it just looks like something with an Instagram filter slapped on it. And it's like, okay, well, I just spent all that money and all that time. But there's definitely an intention and a cost with every frame now associated with film that I do love. So occasionally, but all the cameras next to my bed over there aren't just like for show. They're all loaded with film. So
nice. And that's one thing I've used the Phase 1 camera system before in the Pentax, the Z645, I believe it's called. And the one thing that I like, I've never used a Hasselblad or the Mamiya or anything like that, the bigger medium formats. The thing that struck me about, particularly the Phase 1, number one, I think I was shooting with like the 50 to 150 lens. It's huge. I'll put it to you that way. It's like you're wielding a cannon. I mean, it's giant. And it doesn't have that agile, I can just whip around and spray and twist and spray and turn and spray a few more shots. It's just very like, I'm lumbering into position, settle in, click. And it's just this solid, you feel like you're pushing just like the picture through the camera. And it's just a whole different feel. And of course, I mean, the quality and just the way aperture works on those medium format cameras and all kinds of stuff like that is amazing. But that's one thing that I've thought. I really haven't shot very much film ever. I accidentally took a film class a number of years ago, and that's the majority of the film I've shot over the course of my life. Other than like throwaway cameras, I guess. Every once in a while your parents get one for you for the Thanksgiving trip or whatever, and you're just like, I'm gonna take pictures. You're a pretty good wedding photographer. And what's your approach when you go into a wedding? I only ask this question because when I first started shooting weddings, the biggest question in my head was never anything technically, but rather, what does the client expect from me? And I didn't quite have the guts to just straight up ask the client like I would do later on. But what does the client expect from me? And how do I come in here and know that I'm going to deliver photos that the client's like, whoa, we really like what you've got. I mean, I've had brides cry to me after the wedding, not in a good way, over the photos that I shot. So what kind of things are you looking for? What's going through your mind when you're approaching a wedding project?
I mean, there's a couple things that's obviously changed over the years as I've gotten more comfortable. But I think one thing that you kind of hit on there is learning what's important to them. Almost in like a 1 through 5, and sometimes it's things you're not aware of, if they're, Aunt Sally made the wedding cake for them, that's an important thing to them, where some people could care less about their wedding cake. It's like things.
So you're giving them a questionnaire before you.
I used to do it formally, and now it's more just kind of a conversation I like to have with them. As I do more, I used to have timelines and put it on my back of my phone and screenshot them and worry about, but I think, after
now you're so good.
35,
like,
no, but after 35 a year, there's just nothing like that really anyone could throw at you that I don't think you would be able to, or you just kind of know where to be ahead of time, after, if you're shooting a Catholic wedding, after the ceremony, they're going to the Mary statue. You just know those things, so it's kind of just knowing where to be, that, allows that comfort level to set in. But I think, one of the things I'm definitely conscious of is and have become more conscious of is really just building a strong relationship with them right off the bat, with the couple, with their family. Because, one of the biggest things I've noticed is when a couple you're photographing them and they're looking at the camera, they're looking at you. So if you don't have a good relationship with them, every single picture, it's going to show in their faces, that uncomfortability, that just, if they don't like you, it's going to show. So
yeah, the wedding was great, but we hated the photographer.
Exactly. And, fortunately, I might have had one or two of those in the past couple years, but it has happened to the point where I'm like, okay, I didn't get through to those people, and when I leave a wedding at the end of the night, I'd like to feel like, I'm cousin Max or Uncle Max. I really like to feel like if we were out,
or brother Max in the case of my wedding.
Exactly. We would hang out again, or, I would be invited to the anniversary party or something. You know what I mean? Just kind of building a relationship with their family, their friends, that you're someone that they would want to be there for the day. It's a very interesting situation to just be kind of thrown into these people's worlds. Maybe you had an engagement shoot, maybe they're complete strangers, maybe they're your best friends, but just being thrown into their world and those pre-existing relationships that they have with their friends and their family, and navigating that for 10 to 12 hours. It's unlike any other thing really I experience in the professional sense of what I shoot. And it's becoming a bit of a chameleon and kind of just adjusting to being that person, or that if you have to be that sense of calm for the day and really slow things down if everyone's up on edge, or if people are rushing around, if they're running behind, kind of being the fire behind them to get them out the door so we're not running late. So it's just kind of figuring out what your role is and making sure that day goes as smooth as possible for them.
Did you ever have like a wedding where there was a big fight or anything like that?
I mean, there's been definitely some late night shenanigans, some drunken stuff, but for the most part, it's been pretty civil. I haven't had any huge disasters,
No
obviously.
full on brawls on the dance floor.
No, not yet. Some, there's been family dramas here and there, and friend dramas here and there, and roommate dramas. But for the most part, I've been pretty lucky. I've had a few gear disasters, some dead batteries at poor times, but it's those you live, you learn situations where, you learn to keep an extra set of batteries, a CF card, and, a couple AA's in your pocket at all times. So yeah, it's amazing what you learn, in that realm.
That's pretty crazy. What would you say the most catastrophic thing to happen? Not to get too I feel like we're going down a road.
No.
Everything bad that's ever happened.
I mean, I think there's always that moment where you'll set up lighting in the hall, in the reception hall. And I usually put up flashes on sticks. So I have a couple flashes in the room, and I'll test them 10 times. If I have a second shooter, I'll have him do the walk, from
It always works during the test.
Right. And then, the couple comes out for the first dance. And I also want to admit to this because some clients might out there notice that I didn't get the shot.
Right.
Or, they'll set off confetti cannons on the dance floor, and, the band's microphone system, they turn it on for the first time, and your signals are crossing and you're not talking to your flashes anymore in the room. So again, another learning thing.
Yeah, communication.
Right, exactly. And luckily, the systems I use, you can channel scan. So I make the band bring up all their equipment. I walk over, check the channels to make sure they're clear, and find one that I can transmit on, because I've had that situation where I'll change the batteries and for some reason, channel 5 is full of wireless microphone and DJ light stuff, and you won't talk. So I think just missing those moments right off the bat are always a little tough, but I maybe a blurry kiss in a church once, but I luckily had another shot of it. So
yeah, a blurry kiss is the worst of it. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, no, I've been really, really fortunate. Some dead batteries at some times, and maybe having to switch to a backup camera once or twice because of a mirror lockup or something. But all in all, I've been pretty lucky.
You ski?
I do.
I've always wanted to try skiing. I've never done it before, but there are trees on the side of a lot of these hills, and that leaves me with a little room for concern. How'd you learn how to ski? Was it something that you go upstate? I mean, because right immediately where we live outside of Philly, or in Philly, there's not much skiing, but you don't have to drive too far before there's little bumps, right?
Right, yeah.
Compared to some of the big mountains out there.
Exactly. I mean, I was really fortunate. Honestly, I think my dad took me up as kind of a going bowling or mini golf type activity. He just thought it would be something we would do one weekend, in the winter. And I think I just loved it right off the bat. It really sunk in. And then my father grew up, up in the Scranton area, and it was a nice way to go up and see his family, stay with my grandmother, see
Head out
her.
to the Poconos.
Yeah, we a little bit above there, but yeah, I was fortunate because she lived so close. We would stay with her on the weekends, and then I kind of got into the racing program up there and skied competitively for a couple years, and then taught for years. And now up there, I mean, it's a second home up there now. We've got a place with a bunch of other guys. It's a really cool little old converted barn, and I know the people in the cafeteria, I know the lifties, I know the instructors. Like you walk in the lodge and you know everyone. So it's really like a home away from home, and just the community up there. And obviously there are trees on the side of the thing, but
You've managed to avoid them all at this point.
No, I've had. I could count I've at least on two hands the amount of concussions I've had. But yeah, helmets.
That explains something.
Just a couple. Helmets are a great invention, and it's actually interesting just in the past 10 years to see how many more helmets are out on the mountain now. I mean, I've always worn one because of the racing, but just seeing a lot of the, even adults now wearing helmets, and it's just great. I think it gives everyone a little bit more security and safety.
Was it annoying when you run into a newbie on the course? You're like, come on, get out of the passing lane.
No, I mean, I'm always helpful. If I see someone that's like splayed out with their skis off, I'm always going to stop and make sure they're okay. It's like that instructor nature in me. But
you're too nice, man.
No, I mean, luckily, I think where we ski, it's about probably 2 hours above where all like the Philly bus trips go and stuff. So it's a little bit thinner up there, and it's a more advanced skier. And like I said, it's a pretty tight community up there.
Gotcha,
So.
okay. Have you ever been on a mountain when there's been an avalanche?
I have. I mean, I've stayed in towns. Fortunately, I've been able to travel a bit for skiing, and some of these bigger towns, they actually create avalanches in the morning. So if there's snowfall overnight, they have ski patrol that are, go up there and inspect the snowfall. And if it's unsafe, they will actually set charges into the snow and create avalanches to make it safer for the ski day.
Wakes you up too, right?
Yeah. They're alarmed. Yeah, and some of the towns actually have like air cannons or rocket launchers like in the town, so you'll just hear them shooting at the peaks in the morning.
Oh wow!
So it's like an alarm clock for the entire town. But yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of plates go loose on me, but nothing ever like crazy where I was buried or anything.
Nothing where you need a helicopter to come and dig you out.
No.
That's good.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate.
Because I've seen on your Instagram and stuff, you'll post photos. You go over to Europe and do some skiing. You go with your dad. I thought you guys went to Austria every year, or Hungary, or one of those.
We did for years. We had a good friend who ran trips over there. I mean, like an uncle to me at this point, but unfortunately, he's gotten a little bit sick in the past few years and just doesn't run trips anymore. But the company that he ran it through has other groups that go over. So we've kind of hopped around with different groups depending on where we're going. But yeah, it's a great group of people, and I feel super fortunate to have those experiences. But people always talking about going out west, and believe it or not, when you factor in the group rates, it's actually a little bit cheaper to go over there. Skiing, a day of skiing over there is about a quarter of what it costs out west. So.
Wow. And the mountains are just, well, you got the Swiss Alps, right?
Yeah, I mean, the mountains are amazing. The culture is amazing, and it's their national sport over there. It's what they do. It's what they grow up doing. We play baseball and football, and they ski. So from a very young age, it's a part of their culture, and just the small town feel that you get there, and the people are excited that you're there in these remote towns. They're just excited to talk to you about
try new foods.
Oh yeah,
what's the food scene like over in a place? I mean, like Austria. I don't know, some town.
Yeah, I mean, the most amazing thing is actually like on the mountain. So a ski lodge in the U.S., not all of them, but in the East Coast, you tend to have these like hot dog, hamburger, heat lamp situations, where right. Pizza and stuff. And over there,
cheese fries.
Exactly. They have the most amazing little like huts all over the mountain, and you're eating like fresh soup, salad, delicious steak. They really take the pride in it, and they all have these big snowcats that actually snowcat the ingredients up to their place every morning. And you're sitting out in these lounge chairs, the music's blasting, and they just take a lot of pride in it. It's not a 3-hour-old hot dog. It's a fresh plate.
From what I hear, it's like the cheese, the cream, the butters, all the dairy products over there. It's like a different ball game.
I mean, it's all locally sourced. You're literally eating cattle that you can probably see. A lot of the towns have cattle on the mountain, and they bring them into the villages in these big barns during the winter months. But you'll walk through the town and see these rows of barns of all these guys.
It's a Euro feel.
Yeah, I mean, it really is amazing. The food's so fresh over there, and everything's coming, from down the road somehow or another, and I just feel like it's a sense of pride for them. And I love the food over there. It's definitely one of the reasons why, and just to experience that kind of culture and the après ski, the drinking and the festivities literally every day from 2 to 4, on the mountain. Everyone just has a good time, and it's a blast.
So if you were to tell somebody about your hobbies, skiing is like your number one hobby.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. I mean, it's like photography, skiing. Unfortunately, I've had a couple injuries throughout the years, and like surgeries and stuff. But skiing, I won't give up. I don't care if I'm doing it on a one ski and a sled. Yeah. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, you can't. It's one of the ones I won't give up.
That's pretty cool. And then photography and skiing, have they ever crossed? Ever gotten to shoot like ski competitions?
It's so funny you asked that, because I had a conversation a couple months ago with someone, and they asked a similar question, and it's just like, it's a stupid thing that I've never done. I've never reached out to anyone in that realm, and it is such a logical place for my interest.
I would feel like you would know, like, oh, this person's about to do this.
Right.
This will be a cool picture. Whereas I'd be sitting there like, oh, they just did a thing that I should have taken a picture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's like one of those things where I've never made the connection, and I don't know why. I kind of wish I had, and maybe it's something, maybe off this conversation. But another thing is, and I think you alluded to it, is just in this area, on the East Coast, we get maybe 3 months of skiing. Out west, or even up in Vermont, they'll ski until March, May, or late spring.
And the amount of snow we've been getting this year,
it's been great. It has been. It was one of the best seasons. I spent more time up there this year than I think I have in 3 or even 5 years, because of just how good it was. And even a couple weeks ago, they were still skiing. So the whole mountain was even open, which is crazy for this late in the year. So.
And the Norwegians, they're up there. There's a reason that they beat us in every Winter Olympic ever.
Yeah, I just think, unfortunately, it's just, it's not a huge culture on this coast in this area. But eventually I'd like to have my ski bum years and end up in a ski town at some point.
And it's all skiing, never snowboarding?
No, I've tried. I tried a couple times when I was younger, and I just don't like the sensation of it. I don't enjoy being locked in like that. And I think it's, it's just one of those things. It's where you start. I started skiing, and I think that's where it'll probably end.
Gotcha. Well, hey, got to end somewhere, right? See, unfortunately for myself, I feel like my skiing trip would end plastered to the side of a tree. Like, here lived so and so. So getting back to photography a little bit, how did you get jobs that you like, the stuff you were doing, the work you were doing? Was it all word of mouth stuff? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, I started really, really scrappy. I think I even met you pretty early on and reached out to you through the Indie Hall folks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, somebody at Indie Hall pointed you in my direction, or me in your direction, or something like that.
Yeah, I think I got a couple names, and just reached out and just said, "Hey, I'm interested. How do I do this?" And
shoot, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
that's right. I was wondering how I got to know you. I'm like,
yeah, I think it was like I was going back to it today, and I think that was it. I think I kind of.
I remember who it was at Indie Hall that came to me and said, "I know this guy."
Yeah, I mean, that was it. That's the beauty of Philly, as we both know. Everyone knows everyone, and it's just been such a great place to kind of come on the up and up in this world, in the creative world over here, because I feel like if you can't shoot it, someone else will give it to you, and I'm the same way now, just passing off names and jobs, and everyone refers everyone, and it's kind of this big movement. But I mean, I remember years ago putting ads on Craigslist, honestly, like just finding, these web design companies or these one-off shoots and stuff, and just kind of building, and I always had this kind of thing in my head where I never wanted to overpromise or, try to go out and do something I wasn't comfortable with, and really probably in hindsight has held me back a bit. But until I really feel like I'm comfortable doing something, and like you're asking about weddings, I've shot 35 a year for the past couple of years now. So it's just something I know I can do. But in terms of like, even I look, the work that you do, like, I don't know if I would feel comfortable going out and saying like, okay, I can really achieve that look.
That's pretty easy, trust me.
No, I mean, it's gotten better over the years, but it's one of those things where I've just been very conscious of my abilities and what I say I can and can't do.
I think you're good. I mean, I'm just, the stuff I do, I don't think is that good. So I think it'd be easy for you to be like, oh, give me a day.
Well, I mean, it's more just the knowledge, and I remember the first time I even saw gels go on a flash, I was with you, I didn't know what CT, I didn't know what warming and cooling was, and I saw you putting like some warming gels on and you created a sun in the middle of the woods, basically on a gigantic boom light. And I had never seen anyone do that. So again, I think it's just kind of surrounding yourself. I remember just with people that are better than you, that you look up to, and trying to just glean as much information off them as possible.
And yet you still spend time with me for some reason.
Yeah, you're right.
So what kind of, you do film work over with Maestro. You're a studio manager. Would that be an appropriate title to give you?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a bit of a move this year. We kind of closed a wedding brand that we had been running, so there's been a little bit of change in responsibility over there in terms
Just
of
a lot of commercial work now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of corporate stuff. We're doing some really, really fun, kind of whimsical stuff. I don't know if you saw, but we're doing these short stories just for Instagram. We're doing these 1 minute long films.
Oh, no.
They're called Make Long Story Shorts is the handle, but it's just kind of an internal challenge where it's like a 1 minute film, 2 characters, 1 location, 1 minute, no budget. So it's just whatever we have laying around and whoever we can pull in for talent. And it's just kind of creating for.
And these go up on their Instagram feed?
They go up on, it has its own handle. And it's been a blast, just really kind of fun cause I don't really write or direct or, have much of a head in the video world, and just to be able to kind of bounce these ideas off the people that are much better than I am and create these kind of cool little worlds that are a minute long has been really, really eye-opening and fun for me. So yeah, I mean, they obviously do a lot of, bigger corporate work, and had the fortune of doing a really cool creative piece last winter. It was kind of my first foray into that, but yeah, it's been a really awesome place for me to learn a lot about it. I'm in no way a film guy by any means, but just being around
There's so much.
I know.
There's so much that goes into so much.
And it's one of those
stuff.
things that like you can only, and I mentioned earlier, just like selling off a lot of my tools and like the instruments and stuff, really just hyper focusing on photography, and just kind of staying in that vein and trying to learn and, be the best I can be at just that,
I saw they put an Instagram post up, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago at this point. Just, they got 4 red cameras.
Yes, that was an auction play, but yeah.
So have you gotten to use any of them, or like what?
Yeah, we shot my first entrance into the long story short on one of them, and it was actually cool because, again, in terms of coloring and the post, I'd never really done it, and just learning what like different logs are and all this, like these buzzwords that you always hear.
More logs than you ever care. Like, why can't there just be one log? That's what I always wished. Like, why can't Sony and Canon and every other company that has their own log just make something that's very standard and uniform?
I mean, I ask all the time. We were driving in the car, I think yesterday, on coming back from lunch, and people were throwing out words, and I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Because I just, I try to turn into a sponge as much as possible, but it was really cool. One of our editors just kind of let me use the red software, and it's like it looks like Lightroom. There's a curve.
It's incredible the dynamic range, like what you can bring back and bring out. Even if you take red footage into Premiere has like a dialog box that pops up that isn't there for regular non-red footage, and it's kind of like, this is what you've been looking for in Premiere all this time.
It was a blast. It's just like play with the sliders and kind of be able to, at least take a shot at coloring it myself, and just, it's the same as, the HSL panel in Lightroom, you basically, and it was fun. It's really cool to have those little like glimmers and looks into it, and, get my hands on it for a second and just try to, like I keep saying, learn as much as humanly possible.
Do you do a lot of your retouching in Photoshop or Lightroom?
I mean, I think it depends, as you know more than anyone. But in terms of like weddings and stuff, it's a lot of Lightroom. It's big culls, big shoots. If you have 2 shooters, you're coming back with 3,400 images, and just being able to, X and Z and knock them out really quick, and then create, batch actions and stuff and kind of get through it. But for that, those clone stamp situations or that high level retouching, I'm definitely in Photoshop for them. So.
And do you prefer one program or the other? Just in terms, I know there's some jobs that you're always going to use Photoshop for, but I'm just saying, I know people that dread going into Photoshop.
I think Lightroom's definitely faster in terms of processing, but I don't know. I think it's one of those things where the more I learn about it, I learn shortcuts and little stuff every day a lot. I would say early on, I was always looking at your tutvid stuff and just kind of like taking on what I could, and even if I would go through the archives and try to find a picture that looked like whatever your tutorial was doing, just to have a similar image. And I definitely find even just looking at photographers' actions, I've interacted with some photographers that are, pretty big names on, in the social media world, Instagram world, and having them send over presets and seeing, what their matte curves look like or what their S curves look like. And
it's crazy what people can do with curves, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's just really interesting to see, like there's a guy out there, and he had like a promo running, and I direct messaged him, and he was kind enough to say like, oh sure, I'll send you the whole preset pack over. And just to see where how his S curve is so flat compared to, probably the ones you and I build.
There was a photographer who I'd reached out to about doing some stuff with tutvid, and I got a very kind of nasty response back, sort of like, no, I will never reveal how I do what I do. And it was like, I mean, he did some really cool composite work. It's no one that's famous who does composite stuff, not like a Joel Grimes type guy, but he did really cool. I mean, he had some stuff in his portfolio that was really, really cool. I was like, it'd be cool if you would share it. I mean, there's obviously a lot that goes into it. And the thing about photography is you can't just see somebody show you how they do something and you're immediately going to go out and replicate what they do. In fact, you're probably never going to be able to do that. It's one of the things that I love so much about photography is it's very difficult to do that kind of thing.
I mean, it's interesting because you're one of the people, like I said earlier, I learned tons off of, I always joke that my college should forward my tuition to YouTube, because I learned in the film era, mostly film, and just digital editing at the level it exists now was not a thing that was like really taught, so I've had to learn a lot of these things, on the fly, on tutorial videos and stuff. And, I've always been one of those people, and I've run workshops for lighting and stuff, and definitely had people reach out, how do you take this shot? How do you do this? And especially in the wedding industry, like I'm always happy to. I'm not protective over it. It's, if you understand that the golden rules of, ambient light versus flashlight, and the way that your f-stop affects, your flash exposure versus your ambient light exposure.
That's a big thing.
That's a golden rule, I think. Like that's one of the things that the second you get photography becomes like, you can control it, and I think it's one of those things that a lot of people don't fully understand. And every workshop I have, I've kind of done like 101s and 201s, but I spend the first time, like the first, half hour just making sure that everyone in the room understands that idea, because a lot of people don't understand that you can shoot at 40th of a second with flash and just open that ambient light up to such a beautiful place. And it's one of those things, but I've always been I'm never guarded about anything. I'm not, people aren't reaching out on a daily basis, but when I do get those inquiries, I'm always happy to help them select a camera or a lens or whatever I can do.
Yeah, no, I love I mean, obviously, I love sharing. I try to share everything that I learn. There's not really, I mean, even when it comes down to like contract stuff, if somebody will ask me, do you have this in a contract, or should I include this in I mean, I'm no lawyer, of course, but I mean, I'll tell you the way I'm working. I mean, I was just talking to a guy who runs a production company / agency, and they represent a huge number of photographers. They kind of have them in their under the fold, if you will. And we were talking about some contract stuff, and I was just very open and candid. This is the amount of money we talked about, and this is how this guy handled this part of the contract. And he was kind of I don't know that I quite would have done it that way, that kind of thing. And it's just, I don't care if I'm doing something wrong. Even if I'm doing something illegal, I'd rather know so I can correct it than just be like, oh shoot, the IRS is knocking on my door now. Something's gone really.
No, I mean,
wrong.
It's definitely one of those things where there's not a handbook on how to do this stuff. There's not a handbook on pricing. There's no, it's a lot of like sharing knowledge with people that, may not have it, or, asking people above you that are, at the top of their game. And I remember sitting, and we were mentioning earlier, like sitting at meetings, like these first client meetings I had, like Googling on my lap with my cell phone what a transparent PNG was, They're like, can you cut out transparent PNGs? And I was like, I don't know what that is. And I'm literally typing it onto my phone.
I can do it.
And just, so if, that fake it till you make it idea, but there are no like massive ledgers or, and the internet's kind of a dangerous place to go looking for that information because everyone has their own way of doing it. So I find asking a trusted and true colleague, friend, or, just someone you look up to.
The funny thing I found about techniques on the internet is not only does everyone have their way of doing it, but everybody simultaneously is also wrong. Everybody is wrong, and everybody else will tell you that everyone else is wrong.
Yeah, it's crazy. I watch the people in my office, like the motion graphics guy, like cringe when I edit stuff because I have these weird ways of masking and using the lasso tool and just like these quick like fixes, but it gets the job done. But
right at the end of the day, you know.
Just the most destructive editing you've ever seen, not creating layers or masks or anything, but it gets it done. And at the end of the day, it's the way I learned how to do it. And if it looks good, in my mind, then
Yeah,
it's okay.
of course. You working on any personal projects, anything like that recently?
Interesting you ask. I'm cooking one up right now. I'm a little even nervous to like put it out into the world.
Come on, put it out.
So yeah,
put it out. Fortune favors the bold, as they say.
I feel a little bit more comfortable because I have laid some groundwork for it, and I've reached out to 6 or 7 people. But it's basically the idea is just women who inspire me. I think there's a lot of momentum for women this year, and I'm the biggest fan of all of it. You know, I think what's happening culturally is very beautiful, and you know, I've always been one of these people. I grew up with very, very strong women in my life. My mom's like a warrior, always, you know, just brilliant and amazing, and just an inspiration from the very early on. And my aunt and my cousin, I've always looked up to. You know, I gave a speech at her wedding. I was her best man, and I always said how excited I was when she was done her sports season to wear her jersey around for the next 6 months, you know. So it's really just kind of a response to, you know, that kind of growing up, and then just, you know, what I was mentioning, this cultural thing, but really people on a daily basis that inspire me. Mostly I would say through social media, you know, if it's a funny stories they put up, you know, or just their hustle, or, you know, the way they present themselves, and seeing their work, or their passion for their line of work. And, you know, just going out to them and taking some photographs of them, you know, by themselves, a really nice portrait, and then kind of doing whatever it is they do. If they're a photographer, one's a stylist at the top of her game. And, you know, two of our friends that I become close with this year that are just amazing people. They'll send you a text message, you know, just with love and light any day of the week, you know, just somehow when you need it most.
That's the difference between like girls and at least guys like me, because you ain't getting texts like that from me.
Right.
Max, I need something from you.
But you know, it's those people that, you know, reach out with just to make your day a little bit better, you know. And
I guess I got some buddies like that who you know, they'll just kind of like
send you a song or something.
Yeah, just, yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not that in touch with my feelings. Like, it felt nice. Like, but I guess, I mean, it's kind of cool. That's as much as you'll get out of me when it comes to that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's definitely something. I haven't done one in a long time. The last one I did was years ago, and it's something that fell to the wayside. And when it kind of just came to me, unfortunately, through like some kind of negative things that had happened, and really
not
just
having to do with women.
Actually, having to do with women, but it just I really just wanted to go out and let these people that affect me on a daily basis shine a little bit, you know. And I think one of the things, I had a conversation with a person the other night that I was kind of bouncing ideas off of, and you know, I don't really want to put my hands in it too much. I almost want the story to shine a little bit and let them shine, and just kind of spread what what they mean to do to me, and what, you know, their hustle does for me. But yeah, it's something I'm going to get started hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, and I think it'll live, fortunately on Instagram for a little bit. And then I do have a gallery show next year. So if I can get the body of work ready for it by then.
Is it primarily like right now, friends of yours, people that you know more personally that you're getting lined up?
It's a little bit of both. So it's people I've met, you know, once. A person that is the farthest reach is the stylist I mentioned. You know, she really just, her Instagram story on a daily basis, she's flying halfway around the world and then coming back. And it's just amazing to see the level that she does what she does at. And so there are some far reaching, and then super, super close, you know, people. And then, you know, I was thinking about kind of ending this little run of it with family. So, you know,
I was gonna say, yeah, the way you talked about your mom.
Yeah, coming back,
get her involved.
Yeah,
man.
coming back to her, and then, you know, my cousin and my aunt, and just kind of showcasing that's where it all kind of starts, you know. So.
And you don't have any sisters or anything like that?
I don't. So I'm an only child, but my cousin that I keep talking about, she was an only child as well. I mean, we're thick as thieves. So growing up, you know, we were pretty much at a sibling level, and I think still are. So.
One of the first or maybe second shoots I was out on you with, you told me a strange story about additional things you were born with. Yeah. Do you mind talking about it on the podcast? Because I know of nobody else that could vouch or tell a story quite like that.
Yeah. So going back to my mom's side of the family, her grandfather was actually born with 6 fingers and 6 toes. My mother was born with 6 fingers and 6 toes on each hand and foot, and I was the same way. So, Yeah, it's been interesting. I still have the scars. If I knock my hand on the side of a table, I still have nerve endings over there.
Do you get like people talk about ghost pain sometimes?
I don't
phantom
think
pain.
I don't think I
yeah.
had it long enough to have phantom feelings, but I mean, if I knock it on the side of a corner or something, I mean, there's definitely still some nerve ending in there.
It'd be weird if a little fingernail grew out of it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing in there?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too because my scars are pretty hidden, but you know, even my mom's are like even a bit more gnarly. And I remember her telling me a story like my grandfather's literally looked like they went to the butcher shop and just cleavered it off. So yeah, it's pretty special. And
well, at least it's a testament to modern miracles of modern medicine. I
it
suppose.
is, you know, shoes are a little tough and ski boots are even harder, but for the most part, you know.
Do you think it gives you an advantage with like balance? I mean, I know that you don't have it left, but.
I mean, I always think about if I did, you know, like
right. I could have been a wrestler or something.
The world's greatest guitar player, piano player, court stenographer, whatever.
Imagine that.
But yeah, it's definitely something that, you know, I always think about, and it'll be cool, you know, if I ever have kids to see if they come out with it or not.
And you would have it taken off. Like, it's a fully functioning finger?
Yeah, I mean, mine were, they do, some people do have like one. So some people get it on one hand or one foot, but mine were pretty fully formed and there's still like a ball joint kind of cartilage situation in there.
Is there a medical term for that? Because if it's running in the family, it's got to be something, right?
It's called polydactylism. I'm not a scientist or, you know anything about Punnett squares.
Does it have anything to do with pterodactyls?
It does not have anything to do with pterodactyls, but yeah, it's not the most common thing, especially with the full set and, you know, multiple generations in a row. But I like to think it's like a little special thing that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for crying out loud, I've never asked that question to anybody else before.
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation starter, an icebreaker that it's always fun. Or like, I'm sure you've been to these orientations or these meetings where, you know, what's your thing? What's your crazy?
What makes you different?
Yeah.
Well, everybody else get ready to pack up and go home because this guy's got 6 fingers and 6 toes.
It's always a good part of our story or something. So yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, because you told me we were doing a shoot. We were on Broad Street in Philly. It was pitch black. We were photographing a fashion client of mine, finishing up a lookbook thing for the day or something. And I think you even told her about it, and I overheard it, and I'm just like, hold on a second. Are you tell me this again?
Yeah, I have a pretty good couple good baby pictures of this little.
How old were you when it got lopped off?
So I was actually like a gigantic baby. I was almost, I think I was like 11 pounds, 13 ounces at birth. I was.
Because you had extra stuff.
Right, and 25 inches. I was long. You know, I basically walked out. So.
Hey, mom, I'm here.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, so there's really funny pictures of me like not even fitting in like the baby tubs and stuff. But yeah, I think they were able to take it off probably earlier than most people would have because I was just so large. But yeah, there's some pictures where I look like a little burn victim with my hands and legs all wrapped up. But yeah, it was you know, I miss it from day to day, but it's probably in a jar somewhere.
Missing. Oh, that's so weird. Well, yeah, I would imagine because you probably want to save the stuff for research purposes, right? I don't know. Some weird doctor keeps a jar of vinegar on his nightstand or something.
Wearing it around his neck or something.
Yeah, this was my 3rd finger. Well, there's I've heard the story of what is it? Warriors will take if they kill somebody, they'll take the first bullet or something, or the first person they kill, and I forget, it's called like a hog's tooth or something.
I mean, I know.
Make a necklace out of it.
Yeah, I've heard about like snipers wearing ears around their necks. Like I'm good on all that.
Yeah,
luckily, I don't have a violent bone. I don't have a violent bone in my body, so that has always made me cringe.
I don't know that you need a violent bone in your body to be like the ear necklace is not necessarily my thing, but you know, hey, if it's yours, I guess I'm all, no pun intended, I'm all ears. Wow, that's kind of crazy. I mean, I knew about it, but I didn't even know to the extent that you just kind of shared.
Yeah, I have to dig up a picture later.
And
unfortunately,
wild that it runs in the family too.
Yeah, it doesn't come through. So like my mom's sister doesn't have it, but my mom had it, and yeah, we'll see. You know,
do you brag about it at family dinners? Like, we're part of the 6-finger club.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, we know we're better, but we don't tell it. We don't make to try to. We know we're superior, or just mutated. I don't know, but we know.
From a different planet. That's pretty cool, man. That's really neat stuff. That's pretty cool. So moving forward, you're trying to rejuvenate? I mean, I shouldn't say rejuvenate, but you're working at an agency that's doing a lot of motion stuff. You're more interested, though, I shouldn't say more interested, because you obviously love the job that you have and you don't want to go anywhere. But you still have a passion for the still stuff, right?
Of course.
what kind of stuff are you? I know you do a lot of architectural stuff, and like I guess it would be considered architectural, not real estate, right? 'Cause
Right.
you're doing more like stuff for a website of this apartment complex or that home, or things like that are being rebuilt, reconstructed, renovated, things like that. Is that the kind of stuff you're interested in continuing into, or is it just whatever's available?
No, I mean, I think definitely one of the big focuses is, I mean, like I keep saying, I've been shooting a lot of weddings the past couple of years, and unfortunately, the past couple of years, I've had to miss my best friend's wedding. A couple of those just because I'm booked so far out in advance. I've had to turn down being in a bridal party, being a best man.
It's overrated, that stuff anyway.
And it's overrated, but to say no to someone when they ask you for those things is really hard. And just having to, miss these. Life happens on the weekends, So unfortunately, I've been kind of missing out on family time and concerts and time with friends and these events, So I've definitely been trying to find more work that happens during the week, during regular business hours to try to kind of reclaim my weekends. But yeah, I mean, I think food has become a really big passion. I was really fortunate enough to go to a food workshop last week and really got some
So wait, for cooking or for just shooting?
For styling, for food styling and just learning
all the weird lacquers and shellacs you put on food to make it.
And just kind of knowing a little tricks of the trade and, layering and kind of getting messy with it. And just, it was really, really eye-opening and just kind of, again, finding those gigs that happen during the week, if it's corporate headshots or if it's, more portrait work, more product work, I do, like you mentioned, I've been loving the development work I've been doing. I have a very close friend that, does a lot in terms of renovations and changing, the shape of buildings and what they look like. And even the building we're sitting in right now, I've been in it since it's been an abandoned hole, and now to live in it and have that connection to space is really, really interesting. And just being able to, document that change, seeing it under framing, seeing it with drywall has been really, really unique experience. And I enjoy that work a lot.
And your cat was not found in this building.
He was not found in this building. He is a Fishtown find. But yeah, that was years and years ago.
But in the wall of a building is where you found
your
pretty
cat? Much in a basement of an old church I renovated years ago. It was a school. It was across from a church, but it was an old Catholic grade school, and we renovated it. And he had been living in the basement for God knows how long, and was all kind of hungry and dirty. And yeah, I took him home one day, and we've been best friends ever since.
Cool, man. So I wrap up the podcast usually with a question that I've been asking everybody. Do you have any irrational fears, phobias, things you're afraid of, things that terrify you, things that you would run screaming from, things that make the hair stand up on the back of your neck? It's okay if you don't have anything, if nothing in this life fears you. Nothing in this life scares you, I should say.
I'm definitely a scared person. It's not usually in a normal fears, I don't have the heights thing.
That's good. I don't want normal fears are kind of boring.
I kind of fought that. I skydived for years, so I know that's not a thing. I think I have definitely like a spider snake one that's pretty strong. Like spiders freak me out.
I hate spiders.
Yeah, I would definitely go with the animal realms. For instance, birds inside. Like, have you ever had seen a pigeon in a train station? I hate when birds are inside flying around. That's definitely one.
You're doing this thing?
Well, I think when we were kids, we would have catches with baseballs at night, and bats would swoop out of trees at the football or the baseball, and I think that swoop down thing kind of
still lives
got in
your
there,
mind.
got in there somewhere, but. Yeah, in terms of irrational, I'll go that realm. I'm not a fearless by any means. I'm probably still afraid of the dark. Even in a place this small, if I hear a bump in the night, I'll look, behind the shower curtain and stuff. So I'm definitely a scaredy cat, but I'll go with spiders and snakes.
Spiders and snakes it is. Cool, man. I appreciate you being a part of the podcast, jumping on. We'll probably get back together. I envision there being multiple guests who are on multiple times, and there's so many different stories and things that can be built out of one different, one friendship, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been such an honor. Like we said, we've known each other for a long time, and just to see how you've grown the tutvid world, and I've always obviously been a fan of your work and always held it in some of the best work I think out there. And of course, but that goes without saying. So yeah, it's such an honor to be here, and I really, really appreciate it.
Cool. No, thanks, guys. We're gonna wrap this one up. I'll catch you in the next one.
Hey, before you go, thanks for checking out my podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to the show using the iTunes link in the video description below. While you're there, I would love it if you would give this podcast an honest review on iTunes. The ratings and reviews are really cool to see. If you don't think the show is worth 5 stars, Well, let's just pretend it is. Don't forget, new podcasts arrive every Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with an occasional surprise show on Tuesdays. Until next time, this was the Dodcast.